Nice. I think that worked. Are we live on YouTube now? YouTube vertical? Okay. Now I'm just going to test if this works. I will go full screen on YouTube. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so YouTube's still like 10 seconds behind. Twitch is about 7 seconds behind. Sorry, YouTube is actually about 14 seconds behind. Twitch is about 10 seconds. Okay, I'll put this back. Split for clips. Where's my little stream marker button? It's weird. It says unable to add stream marker. Hey, good morning, afternoon, good evening. We're gonna spend 2 minutes and make a quick thumbnail for today. I found this quick image for Classic WoW. Let's see how long this takes. YouTube makes you upload a new live thumbnail basically every day, or else it just copies the old one that you had. Do something like that. Take the picture of Diggler. Let's try removing the background. Okay, that didn't work super well. Come on, Photoshop. Don't do this. Don't do me like this first thing. Select subject. Why is it like not doing a very good job? How do I do this? Modify selection. Deselect. Why isn't it doing a very good job of cutting me out? Can we do this? How do you do this? The magic wand selection. Or no, it's the quick selection. Smart object. Rasterize that shit. Now my coffee cup's gone. Okay. I guess it is kind of dark. What does this look like in Lightroom? Guys, my 2-minute thumbnail tutorial has already failed. Where do I have my thumbnails? No, I thought I already had this one cut out. I guess not. Don't cut off my fingers. If this is gonna look like total doo-doo, we can just scrap this idea. I'm still waiting for AI to be able to do this perfectly. Just clean that up a little bit. Okay, over here, can we get the wand? Oh, there's a picture behind me. Ah, there's a Google memory of photo of my grandma. Should I just remove my hand? I almost, like, maybe I almost should. Okay, should we do a little Zaryu glow? We can go outer glow. Oh, we got lots more to erase. Like that? Do we look like Zaryu now? How do you make it bigger? Oh, outer glow. Is there like an inner feather? Okay, spread is 5%. Okay, that makes it bigger. Let's leave it at 5. Size. Sure, 50 works. Opacity, 89. I want it to glow on the inside of me a little bit, if that makes sense. No. Jitter? Nope, that doesn't do nothing. Noise? Nope, that's not what I'm looking for. Blend? Nope, might not be a blend mode. Ah, looks good enough. There we go. There's our thumbnail for today. Classic plus. Guys, do you like the OBS view with the chat on the side and the full screen desktop? Or do you like this mode with my camera in the corner? Let me know. What do you like? Too much? No, I think it's necessary. I do. If you see this, you're going to see Classic Plus. Okay. Save this, bitch. just going to call this one C+. Okay, that's done. Thank you, thank you. Where? There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know, Classic Plus is going to be right around the corner. You either know or you don't know. And Dave on Dev has been just pumping out killer Classic Plus theory and leak content. He's got a new video that came out yesterday called Releasing Roadmap and Planning. We're going to check that out. Love Dave. I think he's a fellow Canadian, basically lives in Lululemon. Let's check this out.
Content roadmap and how we might build the content release roadmap for Classic Plus. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's me, Dave, and this is Dave on Dev, and this is episode 6, something like that.
There you go.
We are trucking along. This is the episode series where I'm talking about how we might make Classic Plus, and I'm giving you my insights based on my developer experience. I've been making games for about 18 years. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at the content roadmap and how we might build the content release roadmap for Classic Plus. There's a lot of things that go into this, and I hope that you guys find this episode interesting. It's not going to be very heavy on speculation about what the features or systems might be for Classic Plus. This is going to be more about like the process of setting up the project so that it has the right mix of features and content and whatever, so that it's both a good player experience and it's something that players can consume and, you know, enjoy at a reasonable pace, but also something that supports a growing content and streamer creator ecosystem and is something that's sustainable for the development team to make, and trying to balance all of those elements. You know, if you're interested in video game development at all, I think this is going to be a really interesting episode. So yeah, let's get into it.
I'm like
The first thing before
medium
I do, though,
interested in game development. It's like every time I think about getting into games, I just want to play more games.
any of you have ever played Club Penguin, I think with the age bands of people that might be watching this video or interested in Classic Plus, I think a lot of you may have played Club Penguin, so you kind of know what I'm talking about. I worked on Club Penguin from 2008 until 2012 for about 4 years. I'm going to show you guys the process that I put in place at Club Penguin. This is something we used to develop our content roadmap over the years, and it really helped us. And I think that a lot of live games can either benefit from knowing how we did it, or, you know, I think a lot of live games kind of do this anyways, but they might do this in their own way. I'm going to show you guys how I would develop a content roadmap, and I'm sure Blizzard has like lots of different ways that they do it, but this might be some similar ideas to the way that they might be going about it. Okay, so where to start? I think a lot of people are hoping that we start at the best player experience, and I think we're going to try to keep that in mind and try to support that. One of the constraints we can start with, and I think this might be beneficial for us, is the way that players consume the content that gets released. How frequently do we need to do patches? There's a few different reasons why we would need
Every
to
2
set
weeks.
like the proper cadence between patches. A lot of you know this as players. So having the right amount of time between major patches gives you time to level up or get into whatever that content is, enjoy it, maybe see all of it ideally. And, you know, also not too long so that you've exhausted all the content and you're like bored. This is a real balancing act, and I think that what we're seeing on retail is that they've been looking at this and trying to shorten that amount of time, where they've really been ramping up the pace of the different phases. Some people have things to say on whether this is like, you know, producing good results or if it's maybe a little too fast. But regardless, we'll kind of get into the sustainability aspect of that later. I think in terms of like player consumption rates, it is quite a fast pace. The relevance or excitement around a patch or a release for any kind of live game goes really quickly. Things just get consumed a lot faster than you would expect. So you really need to set yourself up in a way where you can go quickly and have enough content for players. Okay, so just to help us visualize this a little bit, I've got the timeline for Vanilla up on screen, Vanilla and Classic Anniversary. What you can see here is that as the years are going on, we're starting to see the timeline compress. The time that things are available to players is becoming shorter. This has to do with like trends of players consuming content much faster. Even when it's new content, Players are able to just like move through stuff a lot faster than they used to. So what was okay back in 2004 for the cadence between patches or major releases of content, that just doesn't hold up anymore. And we're seeing this also in retail where it's starting to speed up. It's almost like a uniform trend here where the timelines are getting shorter and shorter. Also, you'll see that there's a trend where in the newer versions, whatever it is, Blizzard likes to stagger it a little bit, where the first raid also comes out a little bit after the initial launch for the expansion. Okay, so these are
That's
the
smart.
sort of anniversary and classic era expansions past classic. You can still see this kind of like compression or the shortening for the timelines happening. It also lets us kind of figure out maybe where TBC anniversary is going to fall if you just kind of continue the compression, and maybe also gives you a hint at like whenever Wrath gets announced or releases, what that compression also could look like. Yeah, I think this does a really good job also showing just how scuffed the Kata end raid, like Dragon Soul and also Siege of Orgrimmar timelines were. Siege of Orgrimmar, just crazy how long that went on. But everybody knows that story. This timeline here is
I
looking at the more
don't.
recent expansions in retail, so everything after Mists of Pandaria. For me, when I
When I look at this, I think of Warlords, Legion, BFA, Shadowlands, Dragonflight, The War Within, Midnight. This is not WoW anymore. I'm so lost every time they talk about anything past
look
Wrath.
at this timeline, is how much the major patches and minor patches start to develop in these expansions. They really start to lay in minor patch content outside of the major patch content. So in the original set of expansions, the major patches, the major raids, that's when like the big launch would happen for all sorts of stuff. And minor patches start to contain more content that is less big, chunky raids or zones and starts to be more like cosmetics or other features that are coming into the game. You can really see very clearly some of the problems with certain expansions, especially that last patch or last raid tier dragging on way too long for some. Warlords, it's crazy how long that is. And also kind of scuffed for BFA and Shadowlands also, just how long. I mean, these expansions were just so long, you know. Dragonflight gets into like a shorter rhythm, kind of brings that back in, and also makes up for the length on the last major patch and last major raid tier with bringing in the Awakened raids, which kind of like bought a lot of time, as well as
Guys,
they
what
had
are
the
the
Thunderstorm
Awakened
game mode,
raids?
which also bought a lot of time, I think. So yeah, Dragonflight gets it back into this more manageable, almost like year and a half expansion length. And then we see War Within is really starting to dial that in. And then even with Midnight dialing it in even tighter. So I guess like the patterns I'm seeing here are decoupling the launch from the first raid tier being open is something they really like doing now. And you can start to see the raid also becoming available after the major patch drops by like a week or two delay. So that's something to pay attention to. Also, the minor patches, especially Dragonflight, War Within, and Midnight, it's really two minor patches laying in, like feathering in between the major patches. I would expect to see that pattern also with Classic Plus and any sort of, you know, new expansion that we see now. It's going to follow this kind of pattern. So there's a major feature team or a major experience team that is rolling, and that team is doing the major patches. It's probably even two teams. So you might have like a team doing the
They're
launch
always
content,
playing catch up. They're
and then
always
you probably
working
have
on
a
one
team that's
patch
doing
ahead
the
of each other.
0.1 patch content and raid tier, and they're doing some sort of like leapfrog. Even though we do have the expansion teams, which seem to also be leapfrogging, I think within the expansion team you have the patches, like the major patches are probably a leapfrog team. So those are two teams we can already kind of like block in for our team structure for Classic Plus. And then you probably have one, two, maybe even three teams that are working on all the minor patch content. And they're probably working decoupled from the timeline a little bit because they don't have as much time pressure as the raid or the major patch teams have time pressure. So they can like bank and like back catalog a lot of stuff that is like ready, you know, it's in a can ready to go whenever the minor patch needs to like pull it into live. But even then, they can probably be working in a way where they're just like creating a lot of space for each other by having a staggered team setup. So it's really smart, and I can see them really finding their groove, finding their rhythm with these expansions. I know a lot of people have a lot to say about how fast Midnight is, and maybe it's even too fast. It's either too fast, not tested well enough, or something. And
Is
you know,
it
there's like
fast?
lots
Do we
of
have any
bugs.
retail
But I
Andes
can
that are
see,
in
like, just
here?
when I look at this, I can see just there's like a real rhythm to the major patches and the raid tiers that's forming here. And if they don't have a fourth tier, like a season 4 or any sort of game mode coming out, it really needs to end around about like 72 to 80 weeks. And I think that that is probably something we can expect for Classic Plus. So I don't know. I don't know if Classic Plus is going to have expansions, but we can really expect that the first major vector or major expansion for Classic Plus is going to be about 80 weeks long. And I would expect like 3 tiers, 3 major patches worth of stuff, and 2 minor patches in between every major patch. Okay, and now looking at Season of Discovery, we've got the first phase taking about 10 weeks. And this was, leveling up to 25, exploring the world, finding all your runes. There was a lot to do in that first phase.
10 weeks? I could be alone here. 10 weeks for Season of Discovery. It felt really, really rushed because you could barely get a handful of lockouts in Black Fathom depths. You were still farming your Ashen Vale rep, and you were still going around the world finding zones. Yeah, sure. I guess Sod was a testing ground, but 10 weeks wasn't enough. I could be alone here, but I don't think that I am. A lot of people wish that you could have almost 90-day content chunks because a lot of people like organize their life into quarters. Blizzard obviously organizes their patches and their content into quarters. I think it makes sense to me. 10 weeks is way too rushed.
And then getting into BFD and then raiding. It was interesting because they were on a 3-day lockout. The consumption of the content was a little bit faster. So if you had characters, you could like gear up a little bit faster and get more looks on a boss. Same with Nomer too. It was on the shorter lockout. Something to keep in mind in terms of like how long these phases are relative to how fast players could actually go through and consume the content. And then Sunken Temple, that phase 3, I think a lot of people kind of regard phase 3 as taking way too long. But then phase 4, they get back into Molten Core. You can level up to 60. They left about a week or 2 for the Molten Core raid after the launch. Also interesting because that kind of mirrors what we saw in retail about like, having the content come out, but then the raid is staggered a little bit. Phase 5 BWL comes out day and day with the raid. And then we see for phase 6, there's a little bit of a delay for, quests and stuff like that for AQ. Nax is staggered a little bit, and then Scarlet Enclave is maybe like a delay of a few days or something. But we're starting to see there's like this 10 to 12 week phase length that SOD proved. Just based on what I saw in my experience in my playthrough, I think 8 weeks is kind of this like real sweet spot when it comes to how long players sit on a phase and consume that content. But then again, we have to remember we're thinking about like if it's set in the world of Classic and there's only the new stuff coming with that patch, how long does it take for players to consume that release? If for some reason this is set in like a reimagined world or a prequel or just there's so much more new zones or new content, that 8 weeks actually might make more sense if it's like 10 or 12 weeks. Also for SOD, interestingly, a lot of these patches were just very focused on the raid and the raid tier. There was other content going on, but it released with the major patch and with the raid tier, which is very much like the old school style, as opposed to the more retail style, which is like, here's your major patch and raid tier, and then we're going to drop in 2 minor patches in between this and the next major patch. I mean, if we assume SOD is the closest to Classic Plus, we should really be thinking like, it's going to fit something close to what SOD is doing. But that wildcard I'm mentioning about like what other additional content is coming out of the major patch may mean that the cadence is more like 10 weeks or 12 weeks. Okay, so why am I looking at the timelines like that, and why is that so important?
Yeah, tell us, Dave.
One of the things that we need to think about here is the release timing, or how long it is between major releases or when we do content updates, dictates how long the dev team actually has to spend on making it, depending on how we structure the team. And that's really this next major step for us, is trying to figure out what is our pattern, like how frequently are we coming out with content and releasing stuff, and then we're going to make a roadmap that matches that. We will have our own version of the release content map for Classic Plus based on some of these trends that we just saw there with retail, original Classic, anniversary, and now SOD as a touch point. Okay, so where do we go next from here? This is going to be a little bit of a tangent, and like I said, I know not everybody loves talking about content creators and streamers, but it's a big deal when it comes to having a live game.
What are we talking about? We love talking about content
feels
creators and
alive
streamers.
to the players, both in the game, but also like wherever you're consuming content, whether that's on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, you want to see that the game is alive and that there's like a bristling, jumping community, and there's lots of content creators that are attached to your game and making stuff about your game to support it. It's a symbiotic relationship content creators have with games. In some ways, you can sidestep this relationship if you want by being more of like a variety streamer or having a content format that isn't tied to specifically the releases of the game. But for a lot of content creators, you're either doing like a news cycle or a guide cycle, whatever it might be, whether it's like exploration or discovery elements. there's lots of things that you can make content about, but for a lot of content creators, it's tied directly to the content release schedule. So as a game, as both developers and publishers, you always have to be thinking about what amount of content are we coming out with and at what frequency, so that it supports content creators having enough to talk about. This is really what I'm trying to get to, right? We have to make sure that we have enough interesting things for content creators to make like videos and streams about. Otherwise, they're not going to play the game and not going to attach to our game. If you guys looked at any of the stuff that happened with Destiny 2 back when Destiny 2 came out, there were a lot of videos and articles about this. There just wasn't enough interesting content on a release cadence like this to allow content creators to make, 3-4 videos a week, or just have enough stuff to talk about with their audience that was unique enough or specific to them as a creator. The best reference I've ever heard to this is always, the only thing that you can make content about is either where's Xur this week or Doom on the company. And you don't want to get content creators
Wait,
into
what
a
did he
cycle
say
where all
that?
they're doing is, this is always, the only thing that you can make content about is either where's Xur this week
Where's Xur? I don't get it.
or Doom on the company. And you don't want to get content creators into a cycle where all they're doing is covering the latest, patch every couple weeks or whatever, and then dooming on you. You get into this, weird pattern like we had with Shadowlands, where there wasn't much to do but doom on Blizzard, and Blizzard doesn't want that. No company wants this. And the way that you solve that is by having more frequent content. I mean, this is really why you see such a big push for minor patches. You just need stuff to talk about for content creators. And depending on who you are, like if you're Hazel or if you're Soul So Breezy or, whoever, you can cover a lot of the stuff that's in these minor patches, and it relates directly to the kind of content that you cover on your channel. And you don't have to be like, well, it's it's been 3 or 4 months since the last major patch and we have nothing to talk about. So yeah, can you create the situation where your game is giving enough content to content creators to support them for, at least a weekly video, but maybe up to three videos a week? One of the coolest things about Season of Discovery
That's an
is
interesting way of looking at it from a release of a game perspective, of making sure that creators have content about your game to make. That was something I struggled with New World a little bit. I didn't want to make, or I didn't want to get into the habit of making content that was always just complaining about the state of the game and the developers and the bugs. Obviously, New World is no longer in business and the game servers are shutting down, I think even very, very soon. But they have to be thinking about what are creators going to be making content about. That's going to be leveling guides, quest guides, profession guides. Oh, you know what I just realized? With Classic Plus, Blizzard needs to have, for the success of the game, they actually need to have new content across the board. There's no way people are going to still make videos about the Hogger quest 20 years later, when people are making first aid guides and alchemy guides and things for enchanting and engineering. It has to be different now in 2026 than it was back in 2006. This is actually a problem right now when you're going to look at World of Warcraft guides, is that you don't know what's current today or what was uploaded, 18 years ago. Okay, the wheels are turning. We got to get a whole bunch of this content
that
out.
some of the stuff that they brought in became like features and systems that generated a lot of content for content creators. Like, obviously there was a lot to do for streamers because you were with your audience, and if you kind of leaned into the discovery aspect, you were discovering stuff on screen with your audience, which is super cool. So yeah, I'm going to put something up on screen here, which is another reference to Club Penguin. So this is the content release roadmap I had for Club Penguin. This is actually the version that got leaked. Players loved seeing this when it got leaked, first of all. It's not often that you get to see what companies are planning this far in advance. And there was a big community in Club Penguin about finding leaks or finding secrets. We definitely played into the fact that we knew the community had seen this roadmap. We really played with the community expectations a little bit, knowing that they knew this was leaked and may be coming. So that was kind of fun. The reason it got leaked is because we had
Guys,
it on a
that's
big
the audio
wall
issue
in
with
the
Dave. It's
public
not an
area of the
OBS.
development team. So we were developing in an office building that was all one big floor, and we had a spacious area in the center with a big whiteboard wall. And I set that up so I could put the roadmap up on that wall. And every week we would have a big meeting where everybody on the team, like over 100 people, we could all come and just listen to the meeting as it happened, where for the most part, leadership and production and myself facilitating, we would come up with any sort of changes to the roadmap, looking ahead as far as a year. So this was a year's roadmap for Club Penguin, and all the writing on here is actually my handwriting. It's mostly why you can't read it, or some of it is really very hard to read. We use this in a lot of ways. We kind of wanted to make sure that we weren't just like doing everything all at once. We wanted to space out the different launches that we had. So we wanted to have like a really balanced roadmap or balanced portfolio of stuff that was happening every month. We also wanted to make sure that we didn't line up too many structural, big, heavyweight changes to the game. So you can see stuff like the iPhone build out or data center moves and all these other things. We wanted to make sure that they were staggered and didn't like impact each other, mostly because resourcing was hard. So some of the same resources that would work on one thing might be needed for the other. Also, you can see that almost every month there's a party. So parties are a really important type of content in Club Penguin. A party was something where we would take over a number.
Okay, I have to see, what is this Club Penguin? Club Penguin game. Is this a Steam game? Club Penguin Wiki. Oh, sweet. Was this a Nintendo DS game? Or maybe it was ported over. I've never heard of this before. Okay.
Number of rooms in the island. So in World of Warcraft terms, this would be like taking over a few zones or a few towns, and we would revamp that almost like there's the seasonal parties in World of Warcraft. In Club Penguin, these were a big deal because it was usually a way that you could get new cosmetics, or there was sometimes new games and things to do. But it was really like an exciting time in the community, and they were always time locked, so they would only happen for a weekend or 2 weeks or something. Parties, for the most part, really drove conversion for players. So parties had both a free element as well as a premium element, and really we connected that with players that would convert to being members. But also they were some of the cheapest types of content for us to make. Like they were some of the easiest things to do as a development team. And whenever I'm looking at a live product, I always try to figure out like, okay, what is some of the content that players enjoy the most, but is also like easy for our team to make? Not easy because it's cheap or whatever. Easy could also mean, you know, we have a team that's really fast or efficient at it, or we have a tool set that helps us like do it really easily. Whatever it is, you kind of want to lean into being the best in the world at creating that one type of content that is the content that your players enjoy the most. That also, if you just make more of it, make more new content in that area, players are just going to love it and want that more. So I guess a big question coming out of that is, what is the party version of content or features or whatever for Classic Plus? So that's a question I'm trying to answer as I'm going through all of these exercises in these episodes, trying to look for what is the party, like, you know, for Club Penguin. Really, the game just could have survived if we just make better parties. And I think Classic Plus has something like that. Like Classic Plus will survive if every phase just has better raids, maybe zones, maybe discovery elements, maybe quests, whatever that is. And it might not just be one thing too, granted, but whatever that is for Classic Plus, we need to find that, and we need to make sure that part of the team is structured in a way where they can just keep that rolling off the conveyor belt. You know? You just need to keep pumping out whatever that is, make sure it's high quality and good. That's at the core of players staying attached to the game and why people would play the game in the first place. And I don't think it's just existing stuff. I think it really has to be new. The fact that Nomer had changes and BFD had changes and Sunken Temple had changes, however you feel about, you know, those things, whether you thought they were good or not, I can see the Season of Discovery team getting into a position where they're getting good at revamping old things into raids, into a compelling tier of content, and they're going to keep pumping that out and keep being stable and sustainable at exactly what that is. We haven't really seen a lot of zones, right? So like when I think about, you know, New Avalon's cool, Scarlet Enclave and all that, but they didn't really do like a lot of other zones. So either they feel confident that they didn't need to test coming out with new zones in Season of Discovery. That might even like give away what they're up to if they start showing us a lot of new zones and things. But maybe it's also because the team is just very settled and they kind of know what it takes to do a zone because they have all their learnings from retail or all of the expansions up till now, and they can really set up a team that is good at making zones and good at making new quests or new things to discover. But taking old content and revamping that into new dungeons and raids, they obviously needed to practice and, you know, get used to what that looks like and get that team settled into a rhythm that's now predictable, and they can base all of their phases and their, you know, all their tiers based on how long it takes for that team to do that in a sustainable way. This is a monster video. Sorry guys, I know there's a lot to take in this video, but I feel like we've been leading towards here the whole time. And again, you know, in terms of like things companies generally don't talk about when it comes to game development, I feel like I don't see people talking about like how you make a content.
So when's it coming out, Dave?
So I'm really trying to stuff a lot of ideas into this. Hopefully you guys appreciate that. Okay, so hopefully by now you guys understand what I've been trying to get to, right? We want to take content that's shaped in a way where it's creating a compelling and interesting like tier of content or patch of content that players will consume at a rate that kind of matches the amount of like content consumption rate that players are moving at, which seems to be between 8 to 12 weeks at the moment based on things that we're seeing in terms of trends with retail and patch cycles, as well as what we're seeing is what happened in SOD. So expansions or full-length, you know, versions of the game are shortening to about 1.5 years, and we are getting into some kind of cycle where we're going to see a new phase or some sort of minor patch every 8 weeks minimum. And then we want to make sure that we are supporting content creators, that they have enough to talk about. So the contents of that patch, of that phase, needs to have enough to support all the different types of content creators that are out there, whether it's guide writers, whether it's people that are like trying to get the new content down really quickly or discover secrets or whatever, or just anyone who's trying to make like new story or zone coverage content. We always want to make sure that we are creating enough in a patch to support anywhere from 1 to 3 videos a week for our different content creator types. And we also want to make sure that we are structuring the team in a way where we know what our parties are and what our high value content is, that if we just produce more of this, players will really appreciate that. And we are structuring the team to be able to do that and never miss those deadlines and just pump as much as we can into the game while doing this in a sustainable way that doesn't get us behind our schedule. Those are the really big ideas to keep in mind here.
I think he's right.
A lot of stuff so far this video, so I'm going to break this into a second part. We're going to look at the team structure in the next video, and then also do scoping for some of these phases and see what we would bring in for Classic Plus, make some decisions, and actually we can maybe draw a line in the sand of saying, like, given our budget, given our team size, given how we would structure things, this is actually maybe the point where we start to cut scope, and only the stuff that we put in above the line will actually make it into the game. So I'd love to do that exercise also in like the last video of this series. But for now, let's cut it here. I hope you guys really appreciated this and enjoyed it. I know it's very different, but this is like what goes into game development. This is like, you know, between producers and game directors and all the leads on the team or directors on the team, this is the kind of stuff that we're looking at. It's trying to balance the offering of the product and the shape of it, and also the frequency of development and frequency of release to match up with our creator community, which is very important to the game feeling alive in social spaces, but also so that players are not getting bored and playing it at the rate that feels good to them. And it just all works together. You know, we just want all of it to fit. So yeah, even though like I don't really know much about what's happening behind the scenes, I think when you start to see this, you can see that there's an obvious shape to solving this problem that, you know, they've already been leaning towards already with retail and SOD. And now we can just kind of apply that to Classic Plus. Even though we don't exactly know what Classic Plus will be, we know that it will probably contain these kind of principles to development and sustaining a live product with content that's coming up frequently. Thanks again for watching. Hopefully see you guys in the next episode, and take care. Bye.
That's what I like about Dave on Dev, is he seems to say the things that people have been thinking about with Classic Plus for years, and he can help put these thoughts together into like words that come out that make a little bit more sense because he's got all his, you know, game development experience. Awesome. Okay, he's got one more video that came out this morning I saw when I was making breakfast. I just want to refill my coffee, use the bathroom, and we will get this one going here. I'm just gonna. Oh, my head. These are on. No, there we go. Day 3. I'm just gonna see. Did that actually work? Did that send it through to Twitch and to YouTube? Nice. Okay, Dave has watched every Classic Plus video. Let's see what he has to say.
If it ends up being a bust, it's Classic minus. Is anybody else a little nervous? Because we have...
Yeah.
Critical error 1 week. We lost like 4 people.
I'm actually just curious, did Dave go live and watch? No. I wonder how he got this video.
Boom. Down. That sucks. As a hardcore raid leader,
If it ends up being a bust, it's Classic minus. Is anybody else a little nervous? Because we have...
Yeah.
critical error 1 week. We lost like 4 people. Boom. Down. That sucks. As a hardcore raid leader, your mental goes in the bin, but you still have to finish the raid. So you have to replace 4 of your friends that you just killed. And
I love Ampy.
they're crying in
I love this. I love it so much. Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome back. Bit of a different one today. I'm going to be going through and watching as many Classic Plus related idea videos as I can and giving my opinions on if I agree or disagree with the takes. Let's go.
Content to watch. The rewards could also be cosmetic focused, but prestigious, maybe new armor sets that show you've conquered.
I love the Brawlers Guild. So 100% yes to anything Brawlers Guild.
Either Classic Plus comes after the end of Vanilla WoW, or after the end of Wrath. Let's look at the case for Wrath first.
I mean, okay. There's other options for sure.
So instead of us going to Outland to fight them, they are trying to go through the portal to invade Azeroth, and we hold them back. I kind of want that to be the culmination of Classic Plus, if that makes sense, or at least it could be a very cool...
I like that idea, actually. That's something interesting. It's always about the player and where we're going, but I think what he's kind of saying here is like we're trying to protect the world and threats are coming to Azeroth, and that's pretty neat. I do like that idea. That's a nice twist.
Only the 2 main continents, second choice. Anywhere in Azeroth and any other planet or dimension is fine. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's like down the line if they want to keep Classic Plus as like a horizontal progression.
I have to agree. I think as soon as you start taking players off the main 2 continents, it gets weird and it kind of stops being classic.
If Classic Plus is ever going to happen and succeed, Blizzard need to move away from the norm they established, whereby every new expansion has its own new landmass.
I agree
get
with that.
the argument for it, traveling to a new and dangerous...
No, I think a lot of people are saying the same thing. I think it really needs to be a big world. It can't just be like a little theme park island. Yeah, that's a pretty good take.
Oh wow. Classic WoW story. Doesn't really hit hard until Burning Crusade and then Wrath. Vanilla sets the stage for a lot of stuff that's like Uldaman, like with the dwarves and Uldaman and the Titans. You see some of that stuff that ends up being a thing way down the road.
I feel like we can pay off more of that in Classic. We don't have to have like all of TBC come in or all of Wrath. I feel like there is a lot of interesting stuff that gets set up in Classic, but it's a different storytelling mechanism. It's less over the top. The stakes are less existential and less world level threats, and they're more sort of like, you know, neighborhood level threats or espionage.
Yeah.
Especially with like Onyxia and Blackwing Lair and stuff. I think I gravitate more towards that, and there's definitely some Classic feel in the smaller level threats. So, yeah, let's see what they do, but I think it needs to stay... I don't know, the level of storytelling and conflict actually is quite specific.
The Caverns of Time as a location is essentially properly built, and just so many cool instances and locations they could make a ginormous raid out of in the Caverns of Time. Now,
yeah, I think people are going to be split on this, but there's definitely a lot of potential in terms of like bringing in any content you literally want from the canon through Caverns of Time.
That's true. Like the Caverns of Time could be like well, as you said, a portal or a cannon to take you to any part in the Warcraft timeline to experience. Could you imagine taking your classic WoW character to a retail raid? Oh my goodness. And you do this through the Caverns of Time. They already have the development infrastructure of how all these new raids are designed. But going in to a modern retail raid with shadow priests and old warlocks and mages and rogues and warriors, oh my goodness, that would just be so insane. I cannot wait for Classic Plus.
It's a really nice storytelling mechanic. You know, time walking is what it is. I think we'll see if players go for it. You know, if this ends up being true.
Heck, they could even make Upper Karazhan a hub location with little quest lines to other planets, for example, the Emerald Dream locations or Outlands or things of that nature. They can.
Interesting. That's another way to do it. So instead of timelines, having like magical portal gateways and stuff via Karazhan. That's cool. That's cool. I like this.
You know, there are a lot of people who instantly think about the introduction of new races if we were ever to get Classic Plus, but controversial as it might be, I would probably save that till quite some time later.
That's actually not a bad take. I kind of hear that too. I feel like the race, playing the race card and playing the class card is definitely, I mean, they're going to be splashy additions to the game when they come out, so saving them for later. It's an interesting take. I don't know.
One main reason that I want Alliance to have Shaman is because I want to have Bloodlust. Like, so I want Horde and Alliance to both have.
You know, that's a good point. Yeah, I feel like the rating performance rating imbalance is kind of off.
I need to be able to hit every single mob in a 360 cone, and same with Efflow for Resto. That's why I was talking about Efflorescence and Wild Growth. I love being able to hit
a lot of retail abilities. I mean, it's hard to take back some of the really effective like retail abilities that people end up using, whether it's on tanks or healers or whatever. There's some real marquee stuff that's happened since Classic in retail. For however you feel about that, there are some really feel good retail buttons you can press.
Environmental textures and stuff from retail, they just copy pasted in the Classic. Couldn't you see that being like a crash out, like waiting to happen? Like, if they're gonna make some changes, make it unique to Classic Plus. And yes, respectful to the source material, more like a remaster.
I think that's a good take. Yeah, if you just bring things in from retail, it feels like retail, especially on animation.
A rare good take from Cargos. Yeah. I like that.
Affect the gameplay feel a lot. So yeah, I really agree with his take here. The other non-starters, you know, people feel really strongly about monetization as a whole. But I really like his take here on, you know, be careful with the graphics. I haven't heard anyone say that, and it's really smart. Yeah.
World is the main character. Another huge one.
Yeah, agree. I think this is actually a really good set he's got here, and it's very similar to the game pillars that we were putting together in one of the videos. Yeah, I like where his head's at. I think he really gets it. He's obviously like a really fundamentally like core classic player. These things just get stamped on your soul, you know? Respect the source material is a really great core philosophy. I like that.
For us classic Andes. I genuinely believe that. It's like takes a big page out of RuneScape and it fixes all of the problems that Blizzard has and also the problems that we have playing the game in the year of our Lord 2026 and beyond. It protects the players from themselves.
I have to agree. I think that's a really good take. I know that his video here has a lot of like, know this, know that, whatever. I do like that perspective. Some people think, you know, it's like a pessimistic take, but knowing what you don't want and what damages the feeling of classic is just as important as what you add. So I really like all these things he's listing. Having a self-found option really fixes a lot of problems when it comes to like economy. And in terms of like classic doesn't have like a stable economy, right? We've seen that. So having options here, it's not exactly full-on community servers, or maybe it is, depending on your take on that. But I really, really like how he's saying, you know, you can kind of opt into the specific experience you want.
But players then gave feedback and said this flexibility was a good thing.
Yeah, I think flexibility is always a good thing, especially because, like, yeah, it's just 40 people is a lot of people. But mandating that all the guilds scale down is also not as fun. Like, if you can get 40 people or more, that's just hype, you know? Like, raiding in a really large raid has its own feeling, and it's very, very hype. So keeping 40 raids I would really like to see them keep 40 raids somehow. Yeah.
The last thing I'll mention on the topic of raiding is that the challenge for devs, regardless of what raid content we would see, would be in balancing accessibility with difficulty. I think...
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Yeah. I think it lines up with the pillars, too, about being accessible and familiar.
Of course, hard modes have significant drawbacks in that they really do split the player base. Some players, they really only enjoy parsing and competing for top damage. And splitting the player base 2 ways, or even 4 ways, it can really take a lot away from that.
Yeah, fair enough. I think they're trying to find ways for the content consumption to slow down for some people, but also like be longer for...
What is Josh Greenfield? We really want your progress through this content to be satisfying, and part of satisfaction comes from overcoming a challenge. It's tough to make content that has, in some form or another, been well known for truly years hard, but well-known content deserves a bit more
just
friction.
like,
Yeah.
You know, like at that skill ceiling, or can like go further into an experience. So I see the case for hard modes.
Those initial raids on a fresh character. Heroics can easily solve that with gear on par with, say, AQ20, early Nax, or even specialized pieces that perfectly complement your raid gear. It would provide a crucial alternative for players who can't commit to...
I mean, what's the difference between a hard mode dungeon and a heroic dungeon? I think I find this point a little bit confusing. I'm not following the logic. Also, the scaling there, I don't want to get too caught up in it, but it seems off to like level heroic at, you know, certain raid tiers. I don't know. This is a bit unsolved for me. Not sure.
Out of the nearly 500,000 peaked log raiders in Phase 1, the peak number of log raiders at level 60 content was just shy of 90k, stabilizing at around 80,000 weekly level.
That's a big change. I wonder if Classic Plus is going to have this kind of curve.
On average, 68 days between...
Do we remember the New World
releases.
curve, ladies and gentlemen?
This meant as soon as you started feeling bored with an existing phase, the next piece of content was already coming. At level 60, it was so difficult to get bored because there was this fire hose of content coming your way.
Yeah, I talked about this in a previous video. I think it is 10 weeks is a really good amount of time. It might even be as short as 8, but 10, maybe 12, you know, with new content added in where you're like discovering things, or you still want players to like take it a little bit slow, somewhere like 10, 12, maybe 14, the max is a good length. He's hitting on something important here.
Having more people be able to tank is nothing else than just a pure benefit to the game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Solheim. You can't see him because he's sorry about it. I got you behind my picture. I agree. More tanks, more specs that can tank. Easy win. I totally agree on that.
It ended up, in my opinion, working out great, primarily due to the new currency of Tarnish Undermined Reals. These were items that dropped off the bosses.
Remember those reels?
And in level 60 dungeons that kind of function similar to Badges of Justice in TBC. You could trade in reals for loot crates or other items, but loot crates that had resources from the open world. Commonplace resources or...
Yeah, it's cool. I really hope they keep the system. I think it makes a lot of sense. Anything to like balance away from GDKP would be cool, and also like being able to target items is always something that's good for players, I think.
Because for Classic Plus to be the success that we want it to be, there needs to be essentially infinite horizontal progression, and that comes in the form of raids. Now, everybody...
How does that work? I thought raids were vertical progression, or am I missing something?
But more so the loot that drops off of them needs to be loot that is not so much better than everything else that it ends up being frustrating to not get it.
Yeah, 100%. Itemization, the itemization in SOD was kind of wild, so yeah.
Blizzard basically used ChatGPT to design items in SOD. Like, that was kind of the meme everyone was using. Like, stuff just didn't make sense. And what Sven says is 100% accurate. You don't want your players to feel bad. Like, you want to have some FOMO that wants to get them rating again, but when they feel depressed that they can't get an item because it's a 2% drop chance and they need this item to be able to go to the next raid progression, then that's toxic behavior with real money trading and GDKPs.
To the game and new drops without completely invalidating some of the old fun items that are in the game is going to be a really hard challenge. So I agree on that. Yeah.
as this is such a unique time period in Classic. We're stuck at level 60 still, but we have the whole TBC build in vanilla. With so many changes, some more obvious than others, it makes you wonder if maybe the TBC pre-patch is a blueprint for the inevitable Classic Plus. And
this is an interesting take. I like that a lot. I think that that is a cool idea. And if you've ever felt this, when the pre-patch exists for any upcoming expansion, that window of pre-patch to the next expansion always has a different feel, and it's really cool sometimes, like especially when classes are changing in like a really substantial way. So yeah, I don't know if it's the blueprint for Classic Plus, but I think this is a really, really insightful thing he's identified here.
But like that kind of stuff where you get people together and in the world, I think the way that they did it with Earthstrike is a little lazy, particularly. But like that sort of...
I agree. I think the dependency on players and on like doing really hard things or elite quests is cool. I really like that dependency in Classic, so I agree. I do also agree that long grinds, yeah, especially if like there's going to be any sort of concept of like phases or more raids or more tiers that are coming out that are invalidating old grinds, that super feels bad. Like imagine grinding this for, you know, a couple weeks or something, finding people to do the elite quest, whatever, and then they announce, you know, in a week there's going to be a new phase that just completely invalidates what that spot was for that gear item. That sucks.
I think that Classic Plus has to realize a few things with updates beyond just how do we make things more horizontally minded. First, we really need to unlearn how people had learned to play the game. We've had 20 years of optimization. Players know the fastest leveling routes, the best talent builds, the optimal raid compositions. If Classic Plus is adding more of the same, that will be optimized too, and we'll be back to raid logging within a few months. Second is, it should be understood this will be a long-term project. Hopefully, not just a season or something temporary and ephemeral.
That is my really biggest worry. I don't want Classic Plus to be a 18-month another experiment with Blizzard, you know, another season of mastery. If they start talking using the word season with Classic Plus, I think people will check out before it's even released.
Yeah, I love Willie's takes. He totally gets it. I think that is correct. No matter what gets added, it's always going to get optimized by the player. Horizontal, I still haven't seen it solved, you know, like I still haven't seen anyone say anything that really says like, oh yeah, like that's exactly how you solve it. Everybody just mentions OSRS and leaves the conversation there, but like, can someone please say something meaningful to suggest how you add this in a game like WoW that's only ever had vertical progression?
And everyone calls me champion.
This sucks. I agree. It's a weird pervasive issue. It's all in the language, but it really does set like a weird tone, and it sets the stakes in a weird place.
Oh yeah.
It really takes away from like Azeroth as the main character. I agree with this take.
Modern MMORPGs are often...
Wait, what video
Azeroth
was that?
As the main character. I agree with this take.
Modern...
The needed philosophy of Classic Plus. I want to check that video out after this. Does he have them all linked in the bottom? All right, well, I want to check out some of those. Okay.
All in the language, but it really does set like a weird tone, and it sets the stakes in a weird place. It really takes away from like Azeroth as the main character. I agree with this take.
Modern MMORPGs are often designed like content delivery systems. Queue up, consume rewards, move efficiently to the next objective. Convenience becomes the highest priority.
Yeah, I agree. I think the friction, the journey, the traveling, the grind, whatever, the journey has to be as important as the destination, sometimes more. I think that's like the weird philosophy of raid logging, right? It's almost like having the goal or the journey to get the thing is more important or more valuable than actually attaining it in the end or not. So yeah, the way that they design a way with quality of life and travel and fast travel or ports and stuff into the more modern MMOs really affects the feel that makes it feel anywhere remotely close to Classic.
Launch, given a finite amount of developer resources, Should more effort be put into creating entirely new dungeons or improving the old dungeons? Given a finite amount of developer resources, I don't think the old dungeons are so bad that if you had to pick one, I think it is important to sprinkle some new stuff there. But if you had to pick one, you should add some new dungeons. Ideally, they should do this. Try to balance between the two by making new ones and fix the extra bad.
I don't know. I think what Sod showed is that the dungeon content is interesting, but a lot of people gravitate towards raids. If we see phases the way that we've seen them in SOD, I feel like there's going to be more of an emphasis on the tier. Like a phase looks like a raid tier in a lot of ways. It doesn't look like a dungeon tier. So I don't know. I feel like any time spent on dungeons from a development standpoint, if you're not like turning that into some sort of extended dungeon or heroic modes or extra modes, or it just has like extra challenges, or it's a raid, that just feels like it's not going to call to players in the same way. Like it will be nice level up content, but it won't feel like a tier that is like mandatory that you'll go to, which I don't know, that fights against the fact of having finite resources. So I don't think I agreed on this one.
Now, Jedi Warlock goes into great detail about this in an amazing video, and he's an amazing content creator who you should follow, and I'll put a link to his video about this in the description below. But prior to patch 2.3, if you've quested Dustwallow Marsh, you'd find two major cliffhangers in the Shady Rest Inn story and the Missing Diplomat. But along with finally finishing those storylines, Blizzard also gave a total of over 50 quests added to that zone, along with a new...
I think this is really cool. I think this is one of the ways that you can do Classic Plus, is like finishing timelines, finishing storylines, adding more quests like around a hub. It's a really nice way to like build on what's already there in the world.
But the ambiance, the music, the architecture, the colors, the lore, everything about Eversong Woods and the Ghostlands, it's just a perfect MMORPG experience.
Have to agree. I really like those zones too. I think like I haven't felt anything since vanilla that felt really, you know, perfectly packaged in that kind of way, like Duskwood or Westfall or something like that. Eversong, Ghostlands, totally agree. Great take. Yeah.
From my perspective, and that of many other players, this is exactly the approach that would align well with expectations for Classic Plus.
Okay, watching the actual video, yeah, for sure. He's got it right on the nose. I totally agree with everything here. And Dustwallow Marsh is a really good blueprint for this.
Now, the Dragon Isles as a location, as a raid, is kind of hard to do properly, but it is something that they really should finish eventually at some point in time.
I agree, but I wouldn't do this early, and I feel like
the Dragon Isles.
I feel like dragons,
where those are
in general, exist on like a lore level or a story level or even like a threat level that's very high in the stratosphere. So even though you fight a lot of dragons, you know, and there's like a lot of dragon conflict in Classic, if you start to go to like an all dragon place where you bring in Dragon Isles and all these things, I think it maybe speeds up the sort of escalation of conflict and the escalation of storytelling. I don't know, maybe that's a little bit too cerebral, but I feel like you can't like jump to that too soon. There's other locations that don't include dragons that are also interesting that we could do first instead of jumping to the Dragon Isles.
Part of Classic's appeal was some shorter, easier content. ZG, AQ20, Onyxia, world bosses, the green dragons, things of that nature. That's what made Vanilla's world feel so exciting, was that...
I mean, for anyone who could do them, not everybody could even do world bosses because they tend to get locked out or camped or, you know.
Not everything was a 6-12 hour experience and instance. Some things were short and fun, and that's what they should do with Uldum. Now, again...
So Uldum, less epic, more shorter content. I think that's a good take. I could definitely see that. I think because it's Uldum, I think a lot of people are expecting something really majestic. It would be nice if Uldum was like mysterious and slowly dripped out, maybe over a few different phases. I think that'd be cool. So maybe I agree on small, but like lots of small, you know?
Now, it was meant to be a Harpy dungeon tying into the old Talon Queen. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that space. I mean, even just not being a dungeon and an open world like cave, it's way
I remember
different
this
than you think it is, and
place,
way
yeah.
bigger, and there's some crazy mobs down there. So it's a fun experience. I could definitely see that getting turned into something larger. That'd be cool. And just generally, I agree with the take. I think there needs to be like more dungeon content, whether it's like open world spaces that like feel like a dungeon or instance content.
And I think they should take this location and expand it and add it to the Caverns of Time within Classic Plus. They can be one of the first custom-made dungeons that are built into the Caverns of Time that is an interesting location and deep dive for us to play a base.
Yeah, I think Anderhall's cool. Even though it's like not fully realized in the Classic world, if the first time you ever discover it, it's like, what is going on here? Or even like a raid. I could see it being a raid.
Gilneas, dungeon, raid, and being forgotten about. So
I don't know what they're going to do with Gilneas, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be a dungeon or a raid. It feels like it's going to be more like an actual zone. There's a lot of storytelling with characters you could do there.
Where's Gilneas? I got to look at this quick. Gilneas. Show us on the map. Okay, we need someone else to tell us. We can close that.
As opposed to just turn it into like specifically a zone where you go to kill things.
And Tim.
What the heck just happened?
Timbermoorhold was meant to be a big dungeon location. I'm not sure if it was meant to be one dungeon, two dungeons.
Timbermoorhold's a really cool space. Again, I'm not sure if they're going to change it to be like a challenge space, or just like a storytelling space, or some sort of like quest hub or something. But it's a really fun. It's a fun location, and I think a lot of people like furbolgs, especially like turning into a furbolg.
Dark irons of some other kind, and some people say to old gods or deeper into the ground, connecting all the way down to some old forgotten old god.
Wouldn't you love more BRD content? I
want 3
I mean, if
Black
Classic
Rock
Plus
Depths.
was just like, okay, we've added 7 levels to BRD and you can just like keep going and they're all the same size as BRD, I'd play that game.
Welcome to Stormwind, and welcome to the Stormwind Vault.
No.
You see the big boat that Van Cleef is on, and you've done this whole quest chain leading up to Dead Mines where you're learning about the Defias and Van Cleef, and like that's so cool. It's incredible.
Yeah, some of the
Shadowfang,
best.
it's directly tied to the story and the lore of like the Worgans and Gilneas, and you go in and it's dark and it's very medieval type gothic look.
Oh man, some of those early quests and dungeons are just like so iconic.
Oh.
I really want to see more of that. I agree with what he's saying here. Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to see the addition of Hyjal as a max level zone. This would be the first new area added in Classic Plus, and I think that it would be perfect. Can you imagine how fun it would be to uncover what happened after the end of Warcraft 3 here? I can see a story themed around the...
It's interesting that it's interesting setting like past exploration at the end of Classic. It's like we're just totally wrapped up in this idea that like it can't leave the timeline. But
it has to leave the
everybody wants to see
timeline.
Hyjal. Hyjal would be awesome.
There's no way you don't do something interesting with Karazhan at some point, maybe involving the crypts, possibly expand the Scarlet Crusade, or maybe even go somewhere like
This is from a couple of years ago. That's actually right on point. I wonder if he looks back and he's like, yeah, called it.
Oh boy, I'm excited. Yeah, so Jordy just uploaded this video. He was at least one of the head people behind the Classic Plus survey website. Let's check this out.
Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about.
Data miners may have just uncovered the next iteration of WoW Classic, so everyone was blowing me up about this yesterday. Okay, I did look more, and I can confirm it 100% patch 1.6 is mainline Camelot. Mainline Camelot. Camelot.
Officially, unofficial, Camelot is a name for Classic Plus, and well, some people have taken to flexing their, let's call them, creative writing skills.
Fuck me. Classic Plus / Camelot is an alternate timeline bronze dragonflight thingamajig. That it releasing in Q4 2026 is almost a guarantee. The latest, and I say this with almost abject confidence, is Q1 2027. Classic Plus is here. And how can I prove that? With this folder of top secret documents right here.
Should we trust him, your neutralness?
All I know is my gut says maybe.
On second thoughts, let's not go to Camelot. It is a silly place. Right.
Alright, so there have been some fun developments, but ultimately, nothing has changed. We're 3 weeks from BlizzCon, and a likely announcement and any leaks are unconfirmed except a possible slate of releases, which I've linked below, which shows some real evidence of being true. But a lot has changed in regards to the ideas that you all have submitted to the site. Ideas that I hope Blizzard has been looking at for at least confirmation that they're headed in the right direction. Now, real quick, before we get into it, I want to mention Wowhead and my friends Jordy and Rencognito are launching a podcast all about Classic Plus that will cover whatever it is Blizzard are cooking for years to come. Our first guest is GBay99, who has an incredible series on YouTube. I highly recommend it. But we'll be talking with him about the new player experience, the early game, and what exactly he thinks Classic Plus should improve on with fresh eyes. Here's a quick peek.
I like that name, Pull 10. It's like if you know, you know.
Yeah, do you have your bag of marbles, Jubei? Just throw it out.
No, I sold it.
Oh,
No, you sold your bag of marbles.
tragic. Jeez, what if this game isn't actually happening and all this stuff we're making is just talking about a game that doesn't exist? God, could you imagine? Ugh. Anyways, now the website did insanely well. Thank you guys so much for all of your contributions. And
55,000 people. 100?
To look through if you want. And I highly suggest that you do that because there's some absolutely incredibly creative stuff in there. But let's talk about the top ideas in each category and go into why they work. So let's get into it. The next 3 weeks are going to be filled with videos about all of the ideas that you posted on the website, as well as a few of our own. Classic Plus, Camelot, whatever you want to call it, will absolutely feature some new dungeons. There's a ton of obvious additions just waiting for attention and a few you might not have heard of. And if Blizzard is working as hard as I hope they are, dungeons will be a big feature that they'll focus on for launch. Now, first up, Old Ironforge. Now, there's a few submissions with this idea, and Only and I had a similar one, so we're going to mash them all together. And we think it might look a little something like this.
Oh, that's insane, bro. Dude!
So, we always thought it was a weird quirk that Horde got a super low-level dungeon in Ragefire Chasm, and the Alliance didn't. Although, they did get stockades, but by then, there are a fair number of dungeons in that leveling range, so Old Ironforge could fit the bill here as an equivalent low-level dungeon. Now, the natural enemy of the dwarves are the Trogs, which could work, but it's also what fills RFC and would be kind of bland to copy that. Alternatively, what if the Dark Iron Dwarves, which we get introduced first in Loch Modan and one corner of Dun Morogh that most miss, but this lets us learn a bit more about them early. In this scenario,
yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Into Old Ironforge in an attempt to invade it from below and take the city for themselves. And of course, this place is already in the game, accessible with some fancy footwork, and it could end with a final battle up by the airport tying all of the inaccessible areas around Ironforge together nicely. Okay, next up for possible dungeons, the Jadenar Shadow Den.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of areas around the world that are kind of like these, but this one was originally planned to be a dungeon, but ended up more of an open world subterranean complex that really feels like it has a lot of unrealized potential. Now, while it does feature a few quests ending with the slaying of Shadow Lord Feldan and his friends, there's so much opportunity here to build out a great dungeon featuring the Burning Legion and its attempt to get a stronger foothold on Azeroth without having to visit Outland. Blizzard did a great job in Season of Discovery with Demonfall Canyon, and I'm sure this area would be perfect for a glow-up of the same caliber.
Oh yeah, good
Following
point,
up
good
on
point,
this,
good point.
we've got the Stormwind Sewers. So, we've all seen the absolutely adorable sewer beast hanging out in the canals of Stormwind that you've definitely never pulled by accident and died to.
It's hardcore Andes. Yeah, get him, get him. Yeah. Oh! Oh!
Fucking
But where
Graze.
does this guy come from? Now, this dungeon could be accessible to both Alliance via the main city of Stormwind and Horde players through a pipe on the outskirts of the city. Now, the Stormwind Sewers could be a great vehicle to explain some of the lore around how the Defias managed to kidnap Varian, as revealed in The Missing Diplomat, or just see what years and years of piled up trash and waste does to a population of animals. Also, maybe there are some orc raiders from the First War who became trapped down here, cut off from their squad, who've grown old and decided they might as well just hang out and enjoy the free food. Okay, next up, anybody who's leveled Alliance in the mid to late game and has used RXP knows this place all too well. At the northern end of the Isle of Dread, the island south of Feathermoon and Fairless, lies Shalzaru's lair. Now, various temple ruins scatter the outside of this cave, but within, if you take a bit of a dip just to the right of Shalzaru himself, lies this secret little cave, complete with another small temple ruin. Now, this would be a perfect area to tee up some lore about who Queen Ashara is, the Naga's relationship with the Night Elves, and bridge that leveling gap for players in their mid-40s. And yes, Ashara is just sitting there as a zone ready to be used, but come on, we all know something is going to go down there, so let's get a bit more creative. We can see some sea giants here, some Naga, some Murlocs. The possibilities are endless. And once the cave is cleared, players could then venture out to the Isle of Dread proper and discover some more ruins and maybe a plot surrounding Illidan or the Wardens. The possibilities are endless. All right, rounding out our list, an area that already kind of feels like a dungeon.
Oh, one of my favorite places in the whole game.
Now, honestly, if Blizzard just dropped an instance portal at the front of the area and sprinkled a few bosses around the area, the dungeon would pretty much be done. But to expand beyond that, we could explore the ruins while Wildhammer dwarves attack from the sky in an attempt to defend their land from the trolls. Ending atop the stepped hill at this altar here, where, who knows, maybe Vile Priestess Hex and Hitaya the Keeper are looking to summon a Loa spirit in an attempt to beat back the dwarves once and for all, which will need to stop before it rampages across the zone. The beauty of all of this is all these ideas are just leaning into things that are already mostly in the game. There are so many little areas of interest around Azeroth that are ripe for expansion, and here's hoping Classic Plus nails it. Now, the next video, we'll be diving into some of the best ideas that you all have submitted about possible raids for Classic Plus. So, if you want to see those, definitely subscribe to the channel to see that in your feed. Oh, and BlizzCon is fast approaching, which I will be covering everything that we will hopefully be seeing at the convention, so stay tuned. All right.
Sweet.
Thanks, everybody. See you all in the next one.
What are people in the comments saying? Just had some info here. These 5 ideas are not the most upvoted. They are generally well received. If I had done the top 5, they would have been things like seen hundreds of times. Sorry for confusion. Any dungeons you want to see is on this list? Of course there are. There are only 5 here. Okay, 413. Yeah, what happens at like... Wad hype? Mad Season Show has done so many videos on these unfinished and uncut locations between alpha, beta, and releases. Wow, there's so much potential for quest, story, and content for all these places. Maybe even having a story where the players have a bit more choice in rating, or stopping the Dark Iron from getting fair representation in the Dwarven Council. Yeah. Actually insane to have a 4-minute intro. Classic plus hype. Has he released anything else? Spoken. No, that was 6 months ago. Okay.
Or afternoon, everybody. Today I'm going to be taking a deep dive into what I think we need the most from Classic Plus. This is derived from, obviously, conversations with you guys, conversations with my guild, my community, people online, and you know
my
what?
Community.
We have 19 days until Classic Plus gets announced at BlizzCon. We get to see a playtest, and we get to hopefully know the day that it will be released, and I cannot wait for that. But without further ado, I just wanted to, talk about what I think is so important to 1.60, Project Camelot, Classic Plus, whatever name you want to go with, and see what we can come up with for awesome things that I think are essential to the game. And I have two things that I think really, really need to happen. And those two things are going to be balancing classes and making the hybrid specs playable, making every spec playable. The problem that we have seen, it happens not right off the bat in 2019, but by TBC, everyone pretty much had the meta down. They knew what was going to be best. They knew what they could use. They knew what metas to bring. And it ended up being speed runs with 39 warriors just going crazy and blasting as fast as possible. No mana and just full world buffs blasting. And that meta and just seeing that pretty much everything became useless really infected Anniversary. That on top of the PvP changes made Anniversary just literally log in, do AV, get your general high warlord gear, and then go and raid. And there were so many warriors. Is desired, is something that needs to be there, is something that people go after and want in their raid. And while TBC can be a little obnoxious when you really want a Ret Paladin or a Shadow,
I'm assuming that videos Classic needs to do. Is this the same one we just checked out? Yeah, that one. Oh, I'm gonna watch that with my wife later. Really? Okay, let's just look at this for a second here. Oh. Okay, so now that that's not playing, nothing really changed with my GPU. Okay. No leaks.